My name is Jasmine Jackson, and our presentation today is using vulnerabilities in your code base to drive security education in your organization. Whew, that's a mouthful. Say that 3 times really fast. So, who am I? As I said, my name is Jasmine Jackson. My main focus is in web application security. I have a secondary focus in mobile security. I like to play, when I'm not in front of the laptop or on a mobile phone, I like to play vintage video games, Metro Pie. Right now, Super Nintendo is my jam, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I have to beat that game. And if you want to get in contact with me, my handle is cfluffy007 on all social media, my website, Twitter, Instagram, too. So just reach out and talk to me. I'll talk back. So the agenda presentation, give a little bit of background, bones, oh no, building metrics. And when we have the metrics, what do we do with them? And the wrap up. So let's get started. So the background. So what made me interested in this topic? Well, I was working at a company, a fintech company, and I noticed that specific teams were repeat offenders on certain vulnerabilities. The standard, right? Cross-site scripting, injection, the OWASP top 10. So the problem was the security team, my team, we knew about the issue, but no one else did. No one else at the company knew, and it was pretty much hidden. So I was tasked with capturing security metrics to send and give to management, and these metrics would be used to have conversations on appropriate security education at the company. Because it was, and once we noticed, once we noticed the specific vulnerabilities, it was, okay, there's conversations that need to be had at the security education. We might have to tweak it. So I have a couple of slides that are pictures. Now in our world, we code at the speed of light. DevOps, push, and we code at the speed of light. And, while that's great, but the problem with that is, the problem with that is how are we making sure that developers are secure or coding securely, and how are we making sure that we are giving them the best education that they can have? Now, with coding at the speed of light, there are certain tools that we employ as AppSec professionals. And I've just selected 2. So on the left is Fortify, that's their logo. And on the right is WebInspect. So Fortify is a SAST tool, static application security testing tool. So testing code while it's not running. And then WebInspect, a DAST tool, dynamic application security testing tool that is testing an application while it's running. And then I didn't put another, but you might check for like third-party applications such as Log4j. That's big in the news, right? That's pretty much touching everything in Java. So as developers are coding, the vulnerabilities will arise. So that's the next slide with Bones, oh no. And I try to make the titles kind of catchy. So vulnerabilities will be inevitable in code bases, but we shouldn't fret because there should be 2 schools of thought. One school of thought with vulnerabilities is you have them, see them, and as AppSec professionals, you freak out and it's, oh my God, we have these vulnerabilities, what's going on? That's not the proper way, I would say, to look at vulnerabilities. I would say the better way to look at vulnerabilities is, hey, we have vulnerabilities. What is going on? Are there particular vulnerabilities that keep occurring? Conversations can be had, these vulnerabilities. It also allows us as AppSec professionals to determine the health of a code base. Because then, as I said, we can have conversations of, hey, are developers receiving the proper education on secure coding, secure design? Where are we lacking? So, as I said in my background, I had repeat offenders at the company, and I was tasked with building metrics to provide to senior management. Now, with this presentation, it's helping you on your path on if you're like, hey, I want to build metrics too. How would I go about doing that? One of the first questions is, what do I measure? It could be vulnerabilities. Do you measure vulnerabilities over a specific time? For instance, at the company that I worked for, certain teams pushed to production once a year. They had a release once a year. Other teams had a higher frequency. So you have to determine the measurement of time that you're going to measure. Another is, are you going to measure on a specific type of vulnerability? For instance, are you just going to group vulnerabilities and be like, hey, at our company, we have 100 SQL in all the code bases. We have 200 cross-site scripting in our organization, in our code bases at our organization. That might be a better way to do the metric at your company. And also something else to think about is it going to be tool specific or tool agnostic? So I showed the tools of Fortify and Web Inspect, the SAST and DAST tools. So are you going to include that in your metric, such as, hey, in our Fortify tool, we're seeing 10 cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. In our DAST tool, we're seeing 50 XXE vulnerabilities. Again, so measuring and how you measure is going to be important. Also, do you make it team or product specific? In my case, in my background, it was yes, because certain teams were repeat offenders. So in my metric, we wanted to capture that. For your organization, you might not. So again, that depends. And then where do we share the results? So do we build dashboards? Who has access to the dashboard? I would say definitely your senior management, senior leadership should have access to those dashboards. They should know at any given time how your security program is doing. They should not be in the dark. And even if they don't look at the metrics, they should be able to have a copy of the metrics at any time. And then you have to remember that this process is not a one-time process. It's going to be continuous improvement. It might be, when you start this process, it's going to be very high. You anticipate you're going to have a larger number. But as you continue, change the security education, you tweak it, the numbers will go down. You'll notice, hey, we might need to change the measurement. We might need to include certain things, remove certain things. So it's not a one-time process. This is a living and breathing document that will need to be improved upon. So now, I have the metric. What do I do? What now? So you need to evangelize your metric. I'd put senior leadership and developers, but honestly, you need to evangelize to everyone. Everyone who will listen, you need to evangelize your metric, because everyone is going to be affected by your metric. They're going to be using it. Also, reward teams that are doing well. And again, this is different for every company. You might have teams that are doing well, you shout them out, you might give them gift cards, you might have them teach a class, but you should reward teams that are doing well. You should be showing them like, hey, great job, you're doing great. Because that way, positive reinforcement, these teams will do better, will keep doing better, and then want to help other teams do the same. For teams that are not doing well, need to have conversations, such as, where is the security education lacking? It could be maybe the security education is too short. Maybe the security education does not need to be online, because I know that happens a lot. A lot of security education is online and you do a series of modules. And maybe that might not be the best approach. It might be, hey, hands-on, face-to-face, if possible, and, let's do that. And try to do a mixture of security education. And with this, you're going to have to think outside the box. So as I said, with most companies, it's, hey, you have a annual security education review, watch this video, and most times it's, you don't even need to watch it. You just need it to play in the background. And once it's done playing, you'll get a check. Great, you're security compliant. And that doesn't work. So and now the question is, okay, well, we know that doesn't work as an example. How about we look at possibly having brown bags, we possibly have a teacher come in and have a group and have this teacher, have a one-day class and teach and hands-on teaching with the developers with best practices, right? And having an outside opinion, a fresh set of eyes to look at things, to see, hey, well, I see you're doing this at your company. I see you're doing this. Why don't you add that? Because it will make the process so much easier. And as I said, you will need to think outside the box. Also, once you have your metrics, you'll need to create allies in software engineering. So that's security champions or anyone who loves security. I had a manager, a product manager who loves security. He received a master's in it, loved it. So again, it doesn't have to be a security champion, anyone who loves security, but you need allies. Because there's only so many people in your security program, your AppTech program. You're going to need allies in software engineering. They're going to be your eyes and ears, and they're going to be the ones who's going to tell you, hey, we're noticing these patterns that's happening in software engineering, in software engineering, there needs to be a meeting with security, and we need to work through that. And ask for feedback from software engineering. Are the metrics too strict? You're not capturing the right data. So once you have the metric and you show them to software engineering, senior leadership, you show them to everyone, then the question is, hey, are they too strict? Are we capturing the right data? And then again, this is going to be continuous improvement conversations that are going to be had, because it might be you're capturing over a 3-month period and for a specific team, and they're like, hey, we elevate or redeploy to production every 6 months. So this metric doesn't work for us because it's too short. And at that point, you need to modify because you need to account for this team deploys biannually every 6 months. And have an action plan for security education. So with this, anticipate that pushback. So when I say have an action plan, so once you look at the vulnerabilities, you create the metrics, and you have the numbers. Numbers don't lie in most cases. You can fudge them, but most cases they don't lie. And what I find is when people see the numbers, actually see it visually, you can't run from that. And so once you show your leadership or management or whoever these metrics, then you can really say, hey, our security education is not working because here, we just had the security education in March, and we're looking at the metrics from March through June, the second quarter of the year, and we're noticing that vulnerabilities are going up. So that lets us know the security education that we have is not working. So now we need to think of how can we change that? And when I say anticipate pushback, you're probably going to receive pushback from leadership and management because, again, and also some developers, because some people don't like change. So when you anticipate pushback, you have to have an idea of, okay, here's where we are, this is where we're going, and this new set of security education will get us there. And you need to frame it as, hey, these vulnerabilities, if they do not get remediated before we push to production, and let's just say an adversary finds them, it's more expensive to find bugs in production than, say, in development. So it would be advantageous as a company to fix these bugs now in development as opposed to not fixing them at all. Okay, now for our wrap up. Metrics is not a one-size-fits-all. It's organization-specific. Again, I just gave some questions to think about to send back to your company. I gave examples of what I did at my previous company when I had to create my metrics. It will be different at your company. When you create your security education, you need to think outside the box. Using the standard, go to this website, watch these modules, and do a checkbox for security education is not going to work. So we need to think outside of the box, do a variety of security education, maybe some brown bags, live interaction, live training, but you're going to need to think outside the box. The metrics will help with that because then you can show, hey, when we had the live instruction, we noticed that vulnerabilities went down. And then that would justify keeping the live instruction to continue. Make allies where you can. Your security team will be out from software engineering. Software engineering will have more engineers than security engineers. For one security engineer, they might cover 10 software engineers, a team. Anywhere it goes, you're going to be outnumbered. So you need to make allies where you can. And share your metrics to everyone if possible. Everyone at the company should watch your metrics. Everyone is going to be affected by your metrics one way or another. So again, do not share it. Do not be how it was at my previous company where it was hidden and in secret. You want the vulnerabilities, you want the metrics, you want all of that to be visible and in the forefront so everyone can see it and it can drive conversation. So I hope that this presentation was helpful for you, just describing my experience with creating metrics and to just give some ideas of what I did and questions. And I can't wait to hear about you going back to your companies and working on your metrics on social media.